Hello. Great. ¿Será que tengo aquí? Good day, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining us today for strategic marketing. We will begin shortly. We will have our presenter, Ms. Anne Bine, joining us to give us some highlights on strategic marketing, branding, digital marketing, and your competitive advantage. I hope that we will have a great discussion today. Just a reminder of our guidelines: to mute all microphones, place your questions and comments in the chat. We will certainly address them. And please raise your hands if it is that you would like to be unmuted. I am looking forward to an interactive session with cameras on so we can have a great time together. We will begin shortly. Thank you. Welcome again, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm so glad that we're all able to hop on today for our strategic marketing session. I hope everybody is ready for our presenter. We are going to have Miss Anne Bine. Anne is the former founder and principal of the Bine Group, which merged with GMLV in 2019. Where now Anne is a partner, and we have GMLV as being an award-winning integrated strategic marketing and media firm. Anne is also a Pratt graduate and began her career working with top designers on accounts including the Metropolitan Museum of Art, Macy's, Pepperidge Farm, and Novartis Pharmaceuticals. Ms. Bine is regularly invited to lecture and provide her expertise on strategic marketing and branding to numerous public and private organizations. As a brand evangelist, she believes that the brand and the customer experience are intertwined drivers of revenue, and that finding the emotional connection between the two is key. I am so looking forward to today's session. I believe that everyone wants to know more about marketing, especially during these times, and how best we can pivot and maybe rebrand or reposition ourselves. I am going to unmute Anne so that she can introduce herself, say hello. Anne, are you there? One second, everyone. And I'm trying to unmute you. Are you seeing that? One second, I'm having an issue here. You're still muted. Can you unmute your mic?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, everyone. Our presenter, Miss Anne Bine.
Hi. Hello, everybody. I'm so excited to have the opportunity to talk with you and Ashley and everyone today. It's a big topic, and I have no idea where everybody is in terms of their experience with marketing. So for some people, it might seem a little too simple. Others might find it too advanced. So I'm just going to give you a tasting, really, of experiencing this whole process of marketing. I think you know a little bit about me from my bio, but I will share that I'm located in a suburb of New York City, and our clients are mostly Manhattan and New Jersey and New York State and others within the country as well. And I know about you, not too much, except that you're very diverse. Some of you are B2B and some of you are B2C, business to business or business to consumer entrepreneurs. Some of you are, I think, taking the class. Some of you may have already graduated. So I'm hoping that I can at least give you some tidbits of information that you could take away. And I'm excited to get started. But before we do that, I just thought I would show us a short video about what not to do if you're going to approach marketing. Are you there?
I'm there.
Are you putting up the video?
Yeah, we're about to share now.
Okay, great. It's just a minute.
Okay.
Let's hope it works.
Our new website launches in a month. Great work, everyone. Launch means marketing, though, and marketing means content. We need something that's like punchy and shareable. It does well on social. ideas. What do you got? Nice.
Okay, wait, I have something much better.
Oh, nice. I like it. Can we make it go viral? Let's check in with the social media manager.
Oh my god, look at this tiny hamster eat a tiny burrito.
My god, it's so tiny.
I'm so dead.
That's not good enough. It's ideation time.
Siri, what does on fleek mean?
Tell us what our customer wants. Concentrate harder.
You know we haven't tried it?
Come on! That's what we can do it, girl!
So for the marketing, I think this is just how they brainstorm. Labor intensive. Yep.
Perform better with the customer voice. Download the free Conductor Insights app to see what your customer is searching for.
Okay, well, I don't know how clearly that came out. It looked like it was not too terrific, but hopefully it gave you a smile. And you can kind of see that when it comes to marketing, we all get very overwhelmed. We don't know where to start. We throw things up on a board and hope something sticks. But really, you have to understand what marketing strategy is. And really, it's just an overall strategy for reaching your customers, for getting them excited about you, for introducing your services to them. There's lots of pieces to it, and obviously each one of these little sections could be a whole class. So just so keep that in mind, but all these things are part of marketing strategy, and I don't think I have to repeat it if you see it in front of you. And each of them have a very important part, and each of them are integral to the success of a marketing strategy. But because I don't have that much time with you today, I think that I'm going to tell the story through case studies. First of all, I find case studies are always very interesting rather than just bullet points. And you can see some of the successes and some of the struggles that a lot of companies had when they were beginning out. And you know, some of the things that you see here, the things that you're always selling a benefit, you're always trying to sell something, you always want to be able to set your goals, to be able to think about your strategies, your weaknesses, your opportunities, your threats, and that should be something that you think about all the time. You shouldn't just make something up or think you'll figure it out when you get there. And a good way, I think, to tell the story is just from the experience that I've had with Pepperidge Farm, who was a client of our firm for many years. What people don't know is that Pepperidge Farm is an actual farm. And it actually got the name of Pepperidge because there are Pepperidge trees on the property. And the woman who her husband and herself, who lived with their son, the son had a lot of allergies. And this is back a long time ago, like during World War II, when a loaf of bread cost 10 cents. And she decided that she wanted to find something that would not impact her son in a negative way. So she started doing a lot of experimenting, a lot of baking. And she found out that she could make a bread without some of the unnatural products that were in it, and that her son started to do much better when she started to do that. So she kind of knew what her marketplace was. She kind of understand her target audience, maybe other mothers whose kids also struggle. But how do you get them to spend 20 cents rather than 10 cents on a loaf of bread? She went to supermarkets. They did not want to carry her product that she was making in her kitchen. She started going to a lot of, fairs and just sharing it with her neighbors, her friends who absolutely loved the product and could begin to understand the difference between the quality. It's interesting to know that that original recipe is still being baked in their whole wheat bread. So it's exactly the same recipe, which is amazing. And the other way that she was able to grow her market in the beginning was the son's doctor, who was in Manhattan, saw how much better her son was doing. And he was working with just kids with very serious allergies. So he started to tell all of his patients about this product. And then they started buying the product. Well, I'm not going to go into all little bit of details, but as you know, she was extremely successful. She went from her kitchen. So people start off in their kitchens and went to a very small facility. And she and her husband liked to travel, and a lot of the products she created, she actually saw. So she started the little goldfish cracker. At that time, there was no cheese, there was no Smile, but she had something similar to it when she was traveling. And at a certain point, that segment was extremely strong because who got goldfish crackers back then? Babies, because they could eat it. And then, you know, ladies who lunch type people who were having a cocktail at 5 o'clock and they would have a goldfish cracker, you know, some of these little goldfish crackers. Anyway, she became more and more successful. And of course, Campbell's came and bought the company for lots and lots of millions of dollars. So now Campbell's has this product. And the interesting thing is that she was the first woman on a board, because when they bought her company, they gave her a spot on the board because they knew that she should really still be involved with what was successful for her. And they kept the logo, they kept, you know, everything, the branding, the idea behind it, and they kept the products. They were very successful. At a certain point, if you notice number 4, you know, they basically had to reassess, Campbell's were reassessing and adjusting, because you always have to do that. I don't care how successful your campaign is or your product is, you have to look at it. And they realized that why were they selling these little cute little crackers to, you know, almost dead and the babies, that they were missing a whole market in between. And they did a lot of research and said, how can we get that segment? How can we take this goldfish cracker, which is very successful, and get teenagers and teens to be interested? Obviously, teens were like, I don't want anything. I ate that when I was 3 years old. I don't want that product. And that's when they came up with the brilliant idea of Flavor Blasted. Everybody have goldfish crackers there? I don't know. So everything is flavor blasted, and teenagers love strong flavors, and so do adults. And they made an amazing success out of those goldfish crackers. They also had some mistakes. They decided that everyone said they wanted, you know, less calories. Please, we don't want to eat these fattening, delicious Milano chocolate cookies. We want less calories. Well, they launched it, but they didn't do their research, because really nobody buys Pepperidge Farm to have something that's made without real sugar and real butter. It was a total failure. And they learned from that mistake, you know, as well. And what did they realize? Women, because that was really the segment, women were shopping and buying products for their home. They realized that women felt guilty eating those Milano cookies. So what did they do? They came up with these cute little packages where there's 2 in a pack. And now all of a sudden women don't have to feel so guilty because they're only having 2. Anyway, it's a great story, and she was very involved for a very long time. But it's amazing to look at how you can work in a kitchen in your own home and create this mammoth thing. If you believe in your product, and if you get your right segment, you create your SWOT. You know, what are the successes? What are the weaknesses? Her weaknesses obviously was her product was more expensive. What are the opportunities? Gee, I'm really great at baking bread. Let's see if there's more products we can make. And then, of course, the threats, which is competition. So I think that kind of gives you a feeling about how to approach outlining your strategy just from a success study. You know, just remember that it depends if you're a B2B or B2C, who are your customers. So all of that has to be part of your plan in terms of understanding who your segment is. That's really interesting. I do a lot of work for hospitals, and I did a lot of research in terms of who the shoppers are. And of course, who is it? It's women. You have to appeal to women. So you have to know how to speak to them. Women make the decisions for their families on where they're going to go to healthcare. Obviously, if you have a product that's automotive or something that's more, maybe that men would be more interested, you have to market to those people. Where do they go? Who do they listen to? What interests them? How do you reach those people? So that's just something for you to keep in mind. Let's go to the next slide. Oops, that's the last slide. I think we're missing some slides. Number 2. Okay. So what does that mean, a brand? It's a kind of a funny term. You know, a brand is really, you know, think about it personally. A brand is not a logo. It's not the specific words that you say about who you are. It's basically getting people to understand your philosophy and your mission. Think about it in a personal way. It's sort of what people will say about you behind your back. It's what they really say about you. So something that I think is a good way of thinking about it is, you know, branding is the experience that people have with you, with their relationships with you, where your product is. Those two things together. In other words, you can promise the world, but if you don't actually live up to it, your brand is going to have a negative thought. Of course, there's a lot of pieces to it. You want to have an overall look and a feeling that represents who you are. And websites, of course, is absolutely number one. And it's sort of at the center of a spoke, and everything kind of goes around it. So I thought it would be interesting to just talk about it through an interesting case study through Airbnb. Do people there know about Airbnb? I think it's everywhere, right? I can't see people's expressions, but so the thing that's really amazing to me about it is how it started. I remember when it first came out, I said, I would never stay in somebody's house. That is completely weird. I mean, I just would never do that. And they actually were 2 friends that graduated from the Rhode Island School of Design. They were living in San Francisco, and apartments were very, very expensive, and they couldn't afford their rent. They decided that they came up with this crazy idea because there was an event coming up, and they knew there'd be a lot of people coming to the area, and it was a design event, so they kind of knew about it because of their background. And they knew there was very little available, and a lot of the people who'd be coming could not necessarily afford an expensive hotel. They went out and they started by buying 3 air mattresses. 3 air mattresses. Isn't that unbelievable? Now, they were design students, so they made sure that the loft looked beautiful, was lovely, had fresh flowers, and they offered anybody who stayed a nice breakfast. And that's where this whole concept began, which is kind of remarkable. They did bring in another, a fellow student that helped with it in terms of how they would create the website. They decided that most people found places like that through Craigslist, and they just felt like that wasn't the image they wanted to give at all. And they decided they would do a simple website to tell their story, to get people to know about it. The next thing that was coming up was the Democratic Convention in San Francisco. And so they had the website ready, and they had people who were staying, but they needed to raise money. I think that's a big thing for entrepreneurs and people who are starting businesses. How do you raise money if nobody knows about you yet, and you need money to, you know, get off the ground, so to speak? They were very clever. As I said, they were design students. They knew the Democratic Convention was coming, and they decided, it's kind of crazy, they decided to have something fun to sell. So they went out and bought bags and bags of cereal, you know, cold cereal, and boxes, and made covers on the boxes and put the cereal in. One box was called, I want to get this right, one box was called Obama O's, like you know, just clever with a funny illustration. And the other one was called Captain McMahon, the one person who was running against him. They sold these boxes at the convention site for $30 a piece. People loved it because they said, oh, this is like so much fun. And I have cereal now, but I also have these great things because I love Obama or I love McCain. They bought whichever cereal box that they thought that they cared about more. It's hard to believe that they raised $30,000. $30,000. Now think about that. That's guerrilla marketing right there, number 4, right? That's an offline promotion, and that's guerrilla marketing. And of course, they got, because it became such a fun thing, the news reporters picked it up and told the story because they thought it was hysterical. So, I mean, that's just really, really interesting. Their next step really was figuring out how to reach the people. And although they didn't want to be necessarily connected to Craigslist, they did realize that Craigslist was powerful across the United States, that basically everybody was on it. And people on that site were obviously also renting out their places. They decided that they would come up with an idea that people who were on there, they'd reach out and say, why don't you come on my website? We'll help you with the language. We'll make it look more professional. Hey, stay on Craigslist anyway. So without having to, you think about how do you get lists of names? How do you get people who you want to reach out to? Well, first you need the space. You need the beds that people are going to be interested in. And then you need the fact that they were specific on on just that one thing. And Craigslist, you can purchase anything and do anything. I assume they have Craigslist in Jamaica. But anyway, and it really was extremely, extremely successful. But they really always felt that it was really about the experience. Besides having an entrepreneurial spirit, they really believed in what they did. And they worked very hard to make sure that things were done right, that the places that they were reaching out to were going to be legitimate. They had problems. There were lawsuits. There were a few things. If you ever want to read about a case study, it will, you can learn more about that. But it's, it's amazing that it's now a company worth $35 billion from 3 air mattresses. I mean, honestly, could there be anything more exciting or amazing when somebody has a dream and an idea and they go after it of what they accomplished? What they also are doing now is they purchased some international sites that were similar to themselves so that they could have their client list. And now they're expanding in terms of thinking of themselves. It's the entire experience trip. So I don't know if you've been on their website at all, but you can basically get to a place and then you can, let's say, I guess you want to go to Jamaica and you basically want somebody to take you fishing. Well, somebody who has a place and likes to take people fishing will list on the site. And now if you're going to Jamaica, you can sign up for activities and experiences. And again, all the people who are involved, have been validated that they're appropriate people for them to reach out to. So it's not just about anymore staying in a bed. It's like, what am I going to do when I get there? What amazing. Is there somebody who is a chef and would love to offer some cooking classes in their kitchen in Jamaica? Well, gee, how are they going to find those people? Well, if they're on Airbnb, you have a photograph, you talk about yourself, and now you have the opportunity of bringing in all these people to your home that nobody else would know about it. And it's sort of similar you should take a look. It's a really cool website. But I think, they just never stopped growing. They never stopped being entrepreneurs, and they always wanted to find a perfect experience. And that's really the sense of, their website, their social media, email is used for them all the time. They use a lot, content marketing, forums and groups. One thing I want to say about email, which I think is interesting, people think of traditional marketing and digital marketing. The traditional marketing is literally when you put an ad in the paper or you send out a brochure And digital marketing is everything. It's the social media world. But people don't realize that in between the two is something, a make-believe word, but somebody from Pratt, who I went to school with, there's something called tradigital. Tradigital means that if you put out emails, you have an opportunity to send it out who you want to, and then bring them in. So it's all about getting people to come in. Once you send out the right kind of email, very short, very simple, with lots of links, you've now done traditional because you've sent it out, and you sent out your email, and now it goes to social, because now once they click on a link, they learn more about you, or they get to like you on Facebook, or a million other things. So it's kind of cool. So let's go to our next slide. I hope you're learning stuff. So this is another kind of personal story, and actually the only one where this company is still privately owned. The person who is the secondhand man in this firm is the husband of somebody who worked with me for over 20 years. He started off as a designer. He's from Ireland and became very friendly with somebody who was also from Ireland, Kevin O'Reilly. And Kevin O'Reilly was at a point where he wanted to really grow his business and market his business, and hired my friend, Paul, to be the secondhand man to help make that happen. I'll talk a little bit more about COVID in a minute, but I think he has a very interesting story, because his father his parents were bakers in Ireland. And when he came here, he realized after tasting fondant that was offered, that's that icing that's for very decorative that goes over cakes, that it tasted horrible. It just wasn't tasty. And he said, I can do better. So he went in his basement and he started making fondant for 6 months, trying different kinds of recipes. His goal was to make something that tasted delicious. In the past, when you bought a fondant cake, you peel off the fondant. You wouldn't eat it. I mean, it was very decorative, and just eat the stuff inside. After doing that, he absolutely had some relationships in the baking world. He sent out samples to pastry chefs around the United States, some of which he knew, some of which, like, do you know someone I could send it to? He sent it to the cake boss. That was a big deal. And he asked for opinions, and he waited for responses from all these people. And he kept refining. So I think that if you're an entrepreneur and you're making a product, never be satisfied. Always try to make it better. The other great thing about it is when you reach out to people, it's a form of marketing, because now they care. When you ask people's opinions, they seem to care a little bit more. So if you just sent it out and say, hey, my fondant is fantastic, why don't you taste it? You might not get a response. But if you say, I need your help, I'm in the middle of this, I think I'm doing a great job, but I really, really would appreciate your opinion, people respond. Well, after that, he took the refined product and he opened up a 3,000 square foot space, actually very close to where I live. And from there, he went to 9,000 square feet. And in 2012, he opened up a 100,000 square feet factory warehouse where he basically made his product. And it's interesting because when I talk about segments, they have the commercial guys, the big companies, and then he has the bakers and the bloggers and the influencers. So he broke up his strategic marketing into two sides and figured out, how can I communicate with both of those sides? He has an amazing relationship with the bakers and the bloggers and the influencers. He is a good friend of I guess it's called the Cake Boss, or boss, I don't know. But anyway, he has like the top people use his product. So he decided that for the bakers and the bloggers and the influencers, social media was definitely the way to go. They created blogs, they have tutorials. They're there to help in any way they can for the bakers who are making it using their products. And I'm not just talking people in their kitchens. I'm talking about people who are maybe have a bakery and they want to make these products. There's a million tutorials, very involved with all of them, all about social media. They have 3.5 million followers on social media, but they have a very strong relationship with those people. So that's a bond that's already been made. In terms of the commercial larger factories, that's all about trade shows for them. And that's where they do spend a lot of money. Probably much more money is spent because they travel, they go to trade shows, they have booths, and that's been very successful for them. They go nationally and internationally. My friend is actually always traveling, so it's turned out to be really, excellent for them. So everything is going fantastic, and then I hope you're all healthy there. COVID-19 happens. And as you know, New York was very badly hit in the beginning. It was really traumatic. And unfortunately, like many other companies, they had to let go a lot of their staff. And there was a point where they didn't know what was going to happen. They were actually looking into changing their factory so that they could make hand sanitizers. A lot of companies did that. Companies that basically said, I'll switch my machines over and we'll start making masks, or we'll start making the hand sanitizer. So they were thinking about it, and they had to, get a lot of approvals. It never got to that point, thank goodness, because, what ended up happening is what happened in the pandemic. What do people do and spend their time doing? They're in the kitchen. They're in the kitchen, they're baking, they're looking for other products to make. And they had recently also launched in stores like Michael's, which is like they became a retail outlet. They never had that before. So that people who were just regular people could go and order the fondant from some of these outlets, whereas before they never could. They also decided to take that time to really think about the relationships that they had. And I think because they kept up those relationships and they kept offering tutorials and blogs and websites, and were in touch with the people who were there, who were the influences out there, these people really believed in the company and never stopped purchasing from them. I'm not saying it wasn't hard and it wasn't a little scary for a while. They also made the decision that that was the time, since they really weren't going to any trade shows, and that was a big part of their jobs, they decided that that was the time for them to really think about new products. And so they spent a lot of time on working on new products. And they also realized that people were hurting and they should give back. So they got very involved in a nonprofit. I think it's called Cake Smile, or I'm not quite sure. So my friend Paul sits on the board. Oops. I'm sorry, I think I might have lost you. Anyway, yeah, so they sit on the boards and they give back. And I think that's, has a lot to do with the kind of company that they are. And as I said, they're not a public company. I know there's 100,000 square feet. They are thinking about taking on more space. And they were, thank God, because of the loans that were available, were able to bring back many of their, staff. Unfortunately, I think, when this happens and shakes things up, things do change. But I think they did very well by thinking about all these things. They expressed empathy and sensitivity. They thought outside the box when they thought, maybe we'll make the hand sanitizer. They evolved. They started thinking about what they could be doing. Maybe there's new products they hadn't even had time to think about. And the fact that they really kicked things up on social, which takes a lot of time, but not a lot of money. So that's kind of, the thinking that I want you to think about for yourselves. Like, what can you do during this time? Obviously, you all have different products or services that you're selling, but I hope these case studies has highlighted the fact that you can start really, really small. And if you believe in yourself and if you have the right product, you can make magic happen. Of course, the next step, is trying to get money, get things funded. That's always a challenge. I may not get this exactly, but Bill Gates had a quote saying, "How did I become a multimillionaire?" He said, "I reached out to over 800 funders to see if anybody would be interested in giving me some money." Also a guy who worked in his garage. I mean, that's the thing too. They're working in their kitchens, they're working in their basements. He worked in his garage. And he said, so I reached out to 800 people who I thought might be interested in helping this helping me with some money. He said out of the 800 people, 600 people seemed like they might be interested. Out of 600 people, 200 people got back to me after the numbers are not quite right, but I can get the right quote if you really want to see it. In the end, the only people that really seemed interested were 3 people. 3 people made me a multi-millionaire. So that's interesting to think about, right? You have to start with this big funnel until you figure out who it is that's going to help you. Because the other thing without a question of a doubt is you need money. You need money to make this happen. So be very sensitive to how you spend your money in marketing, your return on investment. Start small, A/B testing, try different things. So if you're doing an email list, if you have that, 2 different subject lines, send out 20 of each, see which one gets the best response. There's a lot of things that you can do in marketing to sort of see how that plays out. And it's just, always be nimble. I think a lot of companies that have fallen apart through the years, there's a really great book called Who Moves the Cheese? And it's really about the idea that, if you have a bunch of mice in a room and there's all this yummy cheese, why go anywhere? Then all of a sudden the cheese seems to be going away, but they're still in the room waiting for more cheese. So the idea is that when you struggle, you have to always be thinking about where is the cheese now? All right. So if this didn't work, if this idea that I thought was going to be brilliant didn't work, let me figure out some other way of doing it. I think we're ready for our last slide. I hope that this was helpful. I hope it was interesting. I'm happy to answer any questions. If I don't know the answer, I will be very honest with you, because remember that the industries that I work with were bigger corporations. I mean, I always helped out not-for-profits too, but most of our clients were universities, hospitals, banks, that kind of thing. So I would love to share anything I can that would be helpful for you, but if I don't have the answer, I'll be totally honest.
I'm seeing where people are asking to go back to slide number 1. So I'm just going to go back there for them.
Yeah.
But while I'm on that slide, I would like to say, Anne, thank you so much for the discussion. I do believe that sometimes a different perspective and learning about new aspects to these businesses that we're familiar with really do help us. And I made a note, Airbnb, 35 million and 3 air mattresses. I would never have known.
I know.
And the funny thing is, when I'm working with my entrepreneurs, I tend to tell them that their story is very important. Your story is your main focus point of your marketing. You have to tell your story for people to understand where you're coming from. Airbnb didn't just get up and say that they were this big $35 million valued company. Right. They started with 3 air mattresses. And I'm thinking, I have 1.
Right.
Up to 3. So, the story is really important.
Stories is everything, honestly. I think stories is everything. That, you always have a story. Whoops, I lost you again. Give me a moment to get you back.
Sure. I'm seeing a question here in the chat as well from Foster. And they're asking, what is your view on small businesses doing an ambassador or influencer marketing program to help scale and build brand equity?
I think it's a great idea. And one of the things actually that Airbnb did is at a certain point, they came up with a program where they gave people points for if they were going to list on Airbnb, they were going to give them something back. So for them, it was credit to be able to use somebody else's house. So I think that's really, influences are really important too. But with influences, you have to kind of like, what are you giving them? So for example, if you watch some of these shows, I know I have a 13-year-old granddaughter. So I watch her watching people put on makeup. That's what she does now. And when I watch her, I look at these shows that she watches. They're, and obviously these people are getting money for, listing these, for putting these, for because they've gotten a certain amount of people who are watching them. They become influencers. Well, what are they getting back? They have to get something back. My 5-year-old granddaughter watches something that's a little creepy to me, which is she watches other people play with Barbie dolls. I don't get it. Whoops. You know, those people who are creating those videos are making money because they're influencers. So I'm not quite sure exactly what your product is. So it's a little hard for me to say, but overall, I think it's a great idea.
I'm seeing another question here from Sarita. When starting up a business, do you think it's better to have investors or use your own cash, providing that it would require lots of revenue and product development?
Well, it's always nice to have family investors. If you can get your friends and family to help you out, that's always a good thing to do. You don't want somebody to be in control of your business. I think that takes time. I don't think you really want to think about investors right away. If you look at all of these examples that I shared with you, you know, they didn't have investors in the beginning. And then as they started their products, the investors also helped them to refine and define what they needed. Hey, you need money. So is that, I don't know if that's a complete answer for that question. But I guess if there are people who are wanting to give you money, why not? Yeah, I don't know if I feel that comfortable going further with that.
Someone is asking, what do you think is the best strategy to market a customer service workshop?
I think that's all about social media, writing blogs. Do you have a website? I mean, people think that they need to have a very involved website. You can have just a landing page just to get people to know about you. Are you on LinkedIn? All those things are important for people to see you as being legitimate. And I think that a customer service workshop, could you tell me more what that means?
I think I have unmuted everyone, so you are able to unmute your mic and speak if you would like to speak, if you are not wanting to utilize the chat. So T. Williamson, feel free to unmute your mic. No? Okay, no problem.
I'm not sure if you have responded to Foster's question. I don't know if I missed it or not, but he had asked about if you businesses doing ambassador or influencer programs to help build their brand.
I'm sorry, I couldn't really understand you. Do you want to?
Okay, Michael was asking about the ambassador or influencer program. He didn't recall hearing your response. So he was asking what was your point of view on utilizing that type of marketing, ambassador and influencer programs?
Well, for example, you know, people buy lists for email. I never believe in that. I think it's really not legitimate. And it depends on on the programs. If they exist, how much do they cost? And does it fit in within your budget? Like I said before, it's a lot of experimenting in the beginning. You don't want to blow all your marketing budget away by spending money that you know you don't maybe can't afford. So I would always try to start small and see what, you know, is if you can get connected and they're willing to do it for you for less money or for a shorter amount of time before you see if it's successful. That would be my suggestion. I haven't worked with clients that have ambassadors. Influencers, yes, but influencers are really just getting to know who is, you know, who really would use your product. So that might mean if you're selling technology, it might be trying to get on their website and do a post, you know, getting them to allow you to do a post about what it is that you sell or the service that you offer, where people who would be your client might be. So you always have to make sure that they're the correct clients that
Hello?
they're going after.
Hello?
Yes.
Sorry, I'm Foster here. I'm the person who posed the question, just to give some context. So it's a product-based business that sells all natural cosmetics, right? And the idea was to get the products in front of wider audiences by recruiting ambassadorship. Ambassadors. How the program would work is that Persons would order the product, get it at a discounted price, do a review of the product, tagging the business, and this would go on for about a month to test it out. What I find is that persons are a bit haphazard because they're seeing more benefit on the side of me being the business and not their side in terms of offerings or benefits to them. So when you mention give them something, what are some of the stuff that you can have that incentivize in an ambassador program?
I'm sorry, Ashley, could you just say what you said? It's very hard for me to hear the question.
Here
Okay.
now?
I'm sorry.
Foster?
It's Ashley.
Okay, so you're asking how is it that you can get your products to a wider group of people?
Right, without it being as though the benefit is more on the business side of getting sales, what benefits can you promote to recruit ambassadors? What are some of the benefits that I could include?
I see.
Okay, yeah, so outside of giving products away, she wants to know how else can she leverage.
Can you share what that product is? That might help me to help you.
I'm sorry, there's terrible feedback.
Yeah, some feedback as well. Sorry about that.
That's okay. Can you share what the product is? Do you feel comfortable?
Yes, so the product is guinea hen weed soap, skin moisturizers, and hair serums, and it would be mostly targeting natural women with natural 4C hair, stuff like that. So the idea was to get the product being promoted by women with these 4C hair types, and promoting the products itself. I wasn't planning on actually giving away product because this is a small startup. We are 7 months in for the startup, still seeking investors and seed funding. There is a very low budget, so giving away products wasn't the option. What I had opted to do was to give the ambassadors at a discounted rate to get them to give customer reviews. But persons are a bit haphazard about that because they're saying, oh, what if they market the product and they don't like it? Why do I have to buy the product? Why I can't get the product free? And they don't think that they can promote the product for free. So there's just a lot of negative backlash. So I guess I'm not really familiar with the structure of an ambassador program per se, but it's still an opportunity to explore.
Okay, so I'm gonna give you some context. Guinea hen weed is actually a natural plant in Jamaica that has claimed to have a lot of benefits health-wise, especially for the skin and the face and hair and internally. So there have been persons who have used this herb, so to speak, for medicinal purposes. And Foster has been able to create a beauty line by using this herb. However, she's having challenges with providing customers with the product, given the fact that it is a small startup. Product is hard to get. I mean, her core ingredient, which is the herb itself, to then go and produce these beauty items. I'm not a marketer, but my personal opinion would be that you may have to create sample sizes. Is that how it goes? And especially if it is that persons are doing products and they don't want to give away something, do you create a sample size to give to your influencers? Would that work?
I think so. I mean, people like getting little samples and trying things. The other thing is there a way to go into, maybe some of the local beauty salons or spas, and can, tell them that they, can maybe, would they be willing, and then they could, if anyone is interested in putting in an order, they can get maybe a higher percentage of the sale price, which might motivate somebody who is interested in possibly, having that product. That's a small way of doing it, but I would assume that, have you, been writing lots about this product to try to get it on all different sorts of sites? Have you been sharing information that would be interesting and might get picked up by the news because of the fact that this is something that in Jamaica people know about, but in other countries they don't? But
Before she answers, we do have a few other questions.
okay.
I'm seeing where Sarita is asking, what's a good strategy to get ahead of your competitors in marketing?
Well, first know what differentiates you. What makes you better than everybody else. Once you figure out what that is, what makes you unique, then you basically start with that. I just have to check my connection. I'll be right back.
Sure, no problem, and everyone, thank you for joining while we wait on our presenter and Vine to get back. I would just like to point out that this perspective that we are getting right now is from an international perspective. And I know a lot of our persons logging on today are from Jamaica, like myself. And what we need to be listening out for is how we are able to take some of these tools, this advice, to get ourselves into maybe new emerging markets or potentially thinking about going overseas. We can get the information and work on how best our marketing strategy works here locally as well as potentially internationally. So that was Sarita's question. We do have another question. What exactly is guerrilla marketing and what are its limitations?
Okay, so guerrilla marketing is coming up with things that are really out of the box thinking that nobody else might think about. And, you know, that different people are doing that kind of guerrilla marketing. They may not have a large budget. So it's sort of coming up with the ideas that get people excited or something that's a very unique and different experience. I'm trying to think of which one I shared was guerrilla marketing. I have to go back for a second. You know, for example, people have paid, you know, well, I could just say like the hospital that we've done work for, when we were trying to brand the fact that of the breast awareness experience and the fact that they had a really wonderful program at this particular hospital, we spoke to the town and said, can we actually paint on the floor, on the ground where people are driving about breast awareness? And of course, they wanted to talk about breast awareness. Everyone cares about it. But when they did that, for very little money, they basically tied the two together, breast awareness, and it was sponsored by Nyack Hospital. So it wasn't the normal advertising of social media or sending out brochures or having seminars. It was literally coming up with ideas to get people excited. That is something that you wouldn't normally think about. Do you know what I'm saying? So that basically, you know, was how that, it's that kind of idea. So in the city, they actually went to, you know, where people put their money in when they park their car. So they paid, I don't know who they paid, but they paid someone to put these really cool things on them, which was a part of an advertisement. So it's really not traditional. It's coming up with things that would just sort of out of the box thinking. An example would be, I knew somebody who was looking to get into doing work for a supermarket, and they didn't know how to get in. So they found out the CEO's name. They happened to shop at the store and saved receipts. So they sent a special box in it and said, I've always been your loyal customer. And they had like 5 years of receipts of when they went shopping in the supermarket. Well, that got somebody's attention, right? It got somebody's attention, and they actually were able to say, hey, I want to meet this person. This was so different. So it's coming up with that really different idea that's just clever and creative and sending it out to the world. It could be if you know somebody or sending a box. When we were doing something for a college, you know, usually you do a very traditional thing to get into the college. And I said, no, let's just do something fun. So we went to the college and picked up scraps of paper that students had basically thrown away. There was a Starbucks, we took Starbucks things. They had a lot of international students, so we found, we took tickets from airlines. We put it in big boxes, like big see-through boxes, and just put all sorts of stuff in there that really was not saying, hey, you know, I want to, it was saying, hey, look at us. We have a different way of thinking. Well, we got a meeting. Do you know what I'm saying? So that's guerrilla marketing. It's something you should Google. You'll see how a lot of companies do that. And it wasn't expensive at all. It was just a way of thinking of marketing that was different and that would get people's attention.
I'm seeing another question here. What do you think is the best strategy to market a Christian school?
Well, obviously, knowing your segment is really very, very helpful. You know who you know your segment. And people, it's a combination, because when you're talking about colleges, you have the students, you want to attract the students, but it's the parents. Now, I don't know if this is first generation students, which means there's not a lot of money involved. When you're working with the first generation, they want to know that they can get a job. If that's, I don't know if it's an elementary school or a college. I'm thinking about it from a college point of view. Or if it's an elementary school, that somehow that's going to help them in life. So you have to really think about that student and the parents who are sending their kids. People tend to just advertise for the students, whereas it's really the parents that are, you know, control the money of what they're going to do or what they're not going to do. But it's basically, I think it's a case study, like who these kids are, what successes have they made, you know, and make very simple things out, like Susan, you know, went to this college and she's now a nurse or whatever it is that she's doing, and the success she found was here. You know, so it's basically coming up with a campaign, taglines, interesting things, finding out why, and that's how I would approach it, finding out what makes this school different than all the other schools, and then pivoting right into what it is that makes you unique. And also tell a story. It's all about telling a story, you know, as you had said originally, because when you tell a story, people remember it. You know, they don't remember facts, but they remember how you make them feel. And if you can evoke emotion with people, you know, think about the fact that not-for-profits, it's easy, but like if you're selling a brick, right? How can you get that emotional? Well, think about the brick that builds a house, and the house that now holds a family and keeps them warm. So even the most, you know, inane things like a brick, you can tell an interesting story if you think about what that story would be that would bring some sort of warmth or interest that they would remember.
Well, I'm not seeing any more questions in the chat, but I do believe, okay, someone says it's an adult college, so your answer was on point. Thank you.
Yes.
That was
Yes.
about the school. Okay, Keisha, I'm so glad that you were able to get a response. For me, I would just like to say thank you so much again, Anne, for making the time to join us and have this discussion today. You know, I really can't get over the Airbnb, and as well, you mentioned something about giving back.
Yeah.
And we, through the program, we speak about that in the sense of corporate social responsibility. And, you know, people use that as a way to market. So there are strategies that can be used. We will be having a session on corporate social responsibility, guys. So you may want to hop onto that one when we're going to do that. But it's a great way for marketing to let people know that the company is not just about profit, but about people. So I thought that the case studies today really did enlighten me. It gave me some perspective, and I definitely took some notes. I have a little sheet of paper here, and I took some notes myself. So everyone, please join us again next week, Tuesday, where we will be having our session that will cover crisis management and business. Tuesday, August 18th at 2 p.m. You can scan the barcode to register, or you can write down the registration link. I would just like to say thank you again, Anne. I'm so grateful that you're able to make it today and that we had no issues and that our students, participants, everyone was able to enjoy the session today. Remember, everyone,
so much luck in their endeavors, and can have a dream and go for it and believe in yourself, and anything is possible.
thank you. And remember, guys, note takers are money makers. I say it every session. I hope that you got some good notes, and I look forward to our next session. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.